Alright, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast. BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Now, it's been a while since we've talked about the Zodiac Killer on this channel. I was out of town for a while, then sick for a while, so I wasn't able to record, and then had some other topics kind of come up. But it's good to get back to discussing the Zodiac Killer because there is a lot that we're going to be going through today. This, is titled about suspect eliminations, right? So, what are we going to be starting with first? The first things I would like to say are about the suspect Louis Myers, whom I've talked a lot about on this channel. When I first heard about Louis Myers, I thought that he fit the Zodiac kind of MO more so than any other suspect, except for the fact that he did not match any of the physical descriptions of the Zodiac killer, and he also did not have a good explanation for the ciphers. Then, there was one line in there about how they said, though, that he had a fascination with symbols because of his Celtic heritage, and I kind of did a little bit of stretching the truth with that. In reality, they were more. The real thing was it's just the zodiac symbol in the Louis Myers theory is a Celtic cross, and they said just he's passionate about his Celtic heritage. I kind of stretched the truth a little bit in my uploads with that. Why am I telling you this? Because in the Louis Myers theory, where is the explanation about the ciphers? And someone left a comment on my original Louis Myers upload and they were just saying, I agree with what you originally said. The Louis Myers theory lacks an explanation about the ciphers. Why is that? Because the Louis Myers theory is centered on a deathbed confession that was given from Myers to an individual named Randy Kenny, a close friend of his, right? It is completely undocumented, not recorded, not transcribed, none of that. Where are the explanations about what the ciphers are? I mean, if he is the Zodiac killer, couldn't he have simply told him what the cipher is? If he actually wanted to prove that he was indeed the Zodiac killer, even if you don't have a tape recorder, you could tell him what the cipher is saying. I mean, if you wrote the thing, even if you need a little bit of a refresher what each symbol actually stood for, you could reveal that information. Why didn't they do that? Because they couldn't fabricate it. It's like I'm putting out a theoretical statement, but the reason why the Louis Myers theory lacks an explanation about the ciphers is because Randy Kenny and Myers couldn't fabricate it. They were able to do lots of research about the case, even if we accept everything about that one as true. That Myers knew Darlene Ferrin, that he knew the first two victims at Lake Herman Road, which, he was classmates of them and he worked in a restaurant with Darlene Ferrin. That is like, even if all of his connections to the victims are genuine, no explanation for the ciphers because they could not fabricate it. What I said about that one in a previous one, I believe it was entitled Louis Myers Devil's Advocate, where it's like, this could very well just be the case of two guys who were researching the case and they composed this narrative. Why would they do that? Quite possibly just to offer some sense of closure to the families of the victims. I mean, I'm not necessarily sure why, but what I would say is, for now, I'm going to eliminate Louis Myers as a suspect, someone whom I really believed in the past had a high likelihood of being the Zodiac. Okay? Who are the other suspects that we have eliminated? Ted Kaczynski. Most recently, Bruce Davis, based on my last upload about him, Jack Torrance, Earl Van Best. These are all people that I would say that I don't necessarily believe there is a high probability that they were the Zodiac killer. Now, I'm going to say always, Arthur Lee Allen is on the back burner. A lot of comments have come in about the possibility that Arthur Lee Allen was working with a partner. I did an upload on it. I had that kind of instinct for a while, and I was hesitant to talk about it on the channel because I didn't think anybody else would be in kind of agreement, but so many people have left comments about how they would entertain the possibility that Arthur Lee Allen committed the murders and somebody else wrote the ciphers in the letters. Why? because there's an enormous pile of evidence in favor of Arthur Lee Allen, except the DNA didn't match, the side palm print on the letters and the ciphers did not match Arthur Lee Allen. But he's always on the back burner. Well, who's left? Richard Gaikowski, Ross Sullivan, Lawrence Kane. A big thing with Richard Gaikowski is we would have to know if when he was in Ireland in 1968, the Lake Herman Road murders were committed on December 20th, and I looked at the possibility. The idea just came to mind. December 20th. What if he had come home for Christmas? What if he had left Ireland and came home for the Christmas holiday? I mean, people do stuff like that. That's normal, right? And I thought one of the things that would answer a lot of questions for us about Richard Gaikowski is that whether or not he purchased a plane ticket, or whether or not someone would find out the location of his passport, family member, something like that. I think those things could really answer a lot of questions because would we have definitive certainty if he left the country or not? If Richard Gaikowski was in the United States on December 20th, 1968, I think that would greatly heighten the chances of him being the Zodiac killer. But as of now, the narrative is that he left in sometime in the fall of 1968 and did not return until after January of 1969, leaving him out of the country for Lake Herman Road, right? And I was thinking, would there be any sort of records about purchasing of plane tickets to a Richard Joseph Gaikowski around this time frame, like so we could see the exact dates when he would have left, or any one way to corroborate this? But I was remembering though, my father told me back in, like the 1970s and earlier, in those days, like if you wanted to buy a plane ticket, you could just walk onto the plane if they had space for you, and you could literally buy your plane tickets while you're seated on the plane. Maybe some people from the older age demographics can confirm or deny that, but I mean, I don't necessarily know if there would be any records of a receipt to a Richard Joseph Gaikowski or if his passport is still in existence. But those things would answer a lot of questions. I still stand by a lot of my original claims about Gaikowski, that a lot of the evidence that people are throwing against him is kind of not super strong, in the sense he worked in a movie theater for a while and the Zodiac referenced contemporary film. So what? Big deal. Or that what was it? The none of the Zodiac murders ever took place on a Wednesday night or something like that. Whatever day it was, I don't really put too much. That's not necessarily hard evidence that makes somebody a murderer or directly linking him to the Zodiac killings. I mean, that's kind of just an inference or an assumption. However, though, we can't ignore the connection between Darlene Ferrin and Richard Gaikowski in Albany. I mean, I've done an entire upload on that. I think I did 2 uploads on that, so we don't need to rehash all of those statements. However, somehow, someway, if somebody could kind of get, like, maybe if it were just possible to find some sort of records or some sort of documentation to find out the exact dates that Richard Gaikowski entered the country of Ireland, that he entered Ireland and left Ireland, I think that would give us a much better narrative. And perhaps family members, if they would ever be willing to cooperate in that, would have some insight, or maybe some people who still knew him at the time. But I mean, I'm saying I'm not eliminating Richard Gaikowski right now. I would eliminate Louis Myers for the time being. Arthur Lee Allen is in a special place. He's kind of in his own zone where, I mean, we're just kind of waiting for the smoking gun, sort of. But there's another individual where we also want to look at Ross Sullivan. I mean, right now the theories are kind of pushing toward Ross Sullivan, Richard Gaikowski, and once again, kind of Arthur Lee Allen is just sort of waiting in the wings, for lack of a better term. I know that's not a good metaphor, but that's kind of what we're dealing with. And if there is any more supporting evidence about Lawrence Kane, I'll try to find out about it and put it on the channel. But the issue with Lawrence Kane is just there isn't a whole lot of documented kind of even conversations about him. I really just wish that they had more to say about Lawrence Kane. He's often not exactly a minor suspect, but he's a suspect that people don't talk about that much. Whereas, like when I've done multiple uploads on Ross Sullivan, a lot of people have great info about Ross Sullivan. And a big thing we need to note is Ross Sullivan does kind of fit the mold. I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's like I'm really have this kind of gut feeling that the probability of Ross Sullivan being the actual Zodiac killer is rather high. But now, I think it's just once again good to kind of slowly be checking off suspects. I've kind of eliminated Louis Myers, eliminated Bruce Davis, Jack Torrance, Ted Kaczynski. One day, I would just really like to tell you guys that, all right, here's how we eliminate Gaikowski, or here's how we eliminate Ross Sullivan. And every time I thought I could eliminate Ross Sullivan, I couldn't. Something new came up, or people provided some alternative commentary that allowed us to start thinking about allowed us to start thinking about, like Ross Sullivan in a new way. Oh, we had a comment come in just from Todd K right now where he is saying that what if it was Arthur Lee Allen and Ross Sullivan working together? I believe somebody left a comment on one of the Zodiac uploads on this channel where he was saying that anything is possible with this case. And that brings us to one actual issue. Somebody left a comment on one of the Zodiac uploads, and he was saying there was no actual Zodiac killer. Another one of those things. He said that this was a hoax that was created by the San Francisco Chronicle, where I guess they were kind of just taking other murders, and then it was the San Francisco Chronicle that was fabricating the ciphers and the letters in the name of this Zodiac killer. In short, it's like they're trying to say that the Zodiac is a boogeyman in the dark, and there is no actual link between all of these murders. And I don't necessarily believe that. I think that that's a bit of a stretch. But what I would say is, I believe the person who left that comment did have something in there when they said the Zodiac stole Paul Stein's wallet, the taxi driver, the final confirmed Zodiac murder victim. Oh, what date was that? That was in October of 1969, right? Was it October 11th? Oh, I'm starting to get hazy on the dates. October of 1969, right? And the Zodiac stole Paul Stein's wallet. And one of the things, though, is the person who left the comment was saying, what if somebody is going through their attic or something like that? They find a trunk with their grandfather's old stuff and they find Paul Stein's wallet. That would be definitive evidence that this person was either the Zodiac killer or they had a direct link to the Zodiac. Whereas they used to say this on America's Most Wanted. I remember watching this very vividly as a kid. They said that perhaps one day somebody's going to open up a trunk in the attic and they're going to find the hood. The hood, with the zodiac symbol, like you've all seen the black hood that we're talking about now. Well, guess what? That's one of the starting points of the Jack Torrance theory. I believe he actually said that the guy who was implicating his stepfather, Jack Torrance, I believe he said he opened up a computer. It wasn't a trunk, but like, like one of those kind of desktop towers, and that he found the Zodiac hood in there, and he found a knife that he believes was involved with a particular murder. But anyway, I just think though there really isn't a lot of substantial things to support the Jack Torrance murder theory. But anyway, one thing that I really thought about that was it's possible that that guy saw the same episode on television that I did, and he composed the same sort of narrative that I had just described. I mean, like, he's like, oh, this is what I have to do, so he kind of made the hood himself. I don't believe the Jack Torrance theory. He's another suspect that's been eliminated. And the kind of big thing that we have to talk about now is it's just, I believed the Louis Myers theory for a long time. He was my prime suspect. And it really seems like, it's just he is someone that we have to put in the category of eliminated suspects. That does not mean he can't come back, but Myers was a stretch, to be honest. He matches zero physical descriptions. He would have only been 17 at the time, and I've said, though, that the first Zodiac letter, the cipher, the first cipher that was decoded, I was like, this doesn't actually sound like somebody who was that old. This could very easily be a 17-year-old writing this. I like killing because it's so much fun and stuff like that, slaves in the afterlife. But somebody also mentioned that the Zodiac had a lot of a lot of references in his letters, like would a 17-year-old have been familiar with the opera The Mikado? Um, I'm not sure. That would depend on the teenager, right? But what I would say is just that there is not a good explanation. If the Myers confession was genuine, they could have and should have provided more definitive evidence. I mean, like, my initial statement on that was like, why on earth wasn't it videotaped? Why wasn't it audio recorded? It's like your friend tells you he's the Zodiac killer. I mean, somebody tells me that. I mean, the first thing I'm doing is like, I'm getting some sort of video recording equipment. It's like, hey, I know you're on your deathbed, Louis, but don't go anywhere, please. And then, like, just record that if you believe it's genuine. But I mean, like, even if that didn't happen, why wouldn't he just reveal the contents of the unsolved ciphers and put an end to it? If he wrote the damn thing, and it's just like, well, just look at it. Oh yeah, I remember. This means this, that means that, and give us that explanation. The reason why I believe that they didn't is because they couldn't come up with an answer. And I've been looking at those things, and like I said, I mean, sometimes I can be an imaginative person. I got nothing. Like, I'm just not that good with codes. So, what I would really say that Myers is eliminated, and we talked about Jack Torrance. Earl Van Best would be somebody that I thought was a very kind of low probability of being the Zodiac killer. Ted Kaczynski was, I believe, out of town, out of the Bay Area on certain days of Zodiac activity. Bruce Davis as well, out of the Bay Area on dates of Zodiac activity. So we're kind of narrowing down toward Richard Gaikowski and Ross Sullivan, and once again, Arthur Lee Allen is always a possibility. Are we actually getting somewhere? I mean, is this just like a wild goose chase? I would say that there's certain things about Richard Gaikowski that are very, very direct and they're very well connected. Him being in Albany at the same time as Darlene Ferrin, and like I said, she becomes the most famous Zodiac victim. He becomes the prime suspect on the internet for being the Zodiac killer. I do not want to ignore that connection. I don't believe that that is just like a normal coincidence. It sounds too big to be a coincidence. But then, what about Arthur Lee Allen? What about all of the explanations that they've provided? And Arthur Lee Allen, I mean, he has the MO, he has connections to various victims. I mean, he only lived 50 meters from where Darlene was worked in the restaurant. He also had that sort of kind of motive as well. Not to mention his shady past and like his criminal behavior. And what was the thing though? Wasn't he in jail or something from 71 to 73 during that 2 year cease of Zodiac activity? And it's like I mean, he would have had a partner. But the thing is, a lot of people who've been leaving comments have entertained that. One person did the murders and one person wrote the ciphers and the letters. I don't think it's that crazy. I mean, I also this thinks that this could be something that people have overlooked over the years. We would say though, and I do insist that somebody actually, once again, another excellent comment we had once. They were saying that if this was a partner thing going on, whoever was writing the letters, they were staying at home. Every single witness in the Zodiac killer mystery has reported seeing one person. I mean, in all the sightings, no one reports seeing two guys wearing hoods. No one reports seeing two men leaving the scene together. Even in the Lorraine de Grout incident, which happened, where somebody thought that they were what they saw a potential Zodiac sighting at Lake Herman Road that was confirmed. One person. Well, all I can really say is we're eliminating more suspects finally, which is something that I've wanted to do on this channel for a long time. And once again, I'm gonna eliminate Louis Myers potentially. Arthur Lee Allen, we need a little bit more info. He's kind of like in his own special zone. He's kind of like waiting. And then I really want to focus in a little bit more on Richard Gaikowski and Ross Sullivan. Lawrence Kane, once again, he's a kind of also waiting in the wings, excuse the terrible metaphor. We got Arthur Lee Allen on one side, Lawrence Kane on the other. If we get the smoking gun, if we get the more definitive evidence that could kind of show some more supporting points in favor of Arthur Lee Allen or Lawrence Kane, I would bring them back into the discussion. But let's see if we can find something that is going to connect either Ross Sullivan or Richard Gaikowski to the Zodiac murders. Let's see if there's something that is a little bit more definitive. And once again, I mentioned like if somehow, some way, someone could obtain definitive proof about whether or not Gaikowski was genuinely in the country on December 20th, 1968, that would kind of throw an absolute wrench in all of the explanations that people have put against him. Like, that is the single biggest thing that is ending the Richard Gaikowski theory. The single biggest thing, they're saying he was out of the country on December 20th, 1968, and he got affected the term murders. That is the linchpin in the people who are trying to debunk the Gaikowski theories. I'll dig a little on the internet, but I think this is a little bit larger than the internet. I think this is something that is actually going to require contacting, like archives pretty much. I mean, like records and archives and a whole giant thing about that. And we have another comment coming in from Todd K that says, "What about the newer DNA work and ancestry DNA possibilities?" Yeah, bring it on. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you get people to cooperate. And I believe it was the book about Earl Van Best. I mean, they showed things in their like kind of requests for the DNA for DNA submissions and DNA comparisons, and they were all denied. And I believe even in the Richard Gaikowski documentary, they say that the police denied the documentary filmmakers' comparisons of the Zodiac's DNA versus Gaikowski's. I don't know why. I'm really just not sure what to say. But that's all I can really say for now. And thank you for listening to this upload on the Zodiac. And I think we're making some progress at kind of unraveling the mystery and gaining a little bit more understanding. If you have anything to say at all about eliminating Zodiac suspects and about all of the statements I put forward, please drop a comment below so we can continue the discussion. Thank you, and until next time.